So I'll get started. I'm Jacob Lawless. I'm the CEO of Clutchy Marketplace on Sui. We're a gaming and NFT marketplace. With me today, we have Brian, Bala, Brando, and Akasha. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves very quickly. Brian, you want to start?
Is this working? I'm Brian from Studio Mirai. I'm the CTO. We're an NFT brand that uses NFTs to build and engage communities, and then we will build out products that those people hopefully can help us bootstrap.
Hey guys, my name is Bala. I'm the co-founder of Misfits NFT over on Sui. Our sort of collection is quite similar to sort of what Brian had mentioned here, where we're going to be doing like lifestyle sort of things as well. Beyond that, we're also going to be taking power of like dynamic NFTs, which is obviously what Sui is built around. We're taking advantage of the technology that is being provided to us.
Hi guys, I'm Brando. I am a community builder, and I guess I work with different chains. I really like Sui right now, so that's why we're here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Akasha. I work with the Sui Foundation. I'm an artist and developer with a love for, just like innovative technology and combining existing technology in new and interesting ways.
Great. Brando's very modest. He's going to be doxxed this week, so I think he's a little bit nervous about that. So I'll get started. I think the first question I want to ask, and I guess we can start with Brian, is what do you think it takes to make a creative or successful NFT ecosystem?
Yeah, so for me, I think since a lot of the projects that are going out in the NFT space right now are based around art, and as someone who came from a music background who then transitioned over to tech, I understand a lot of people in the arts sometimes despise tech a bit, or might not want to get in depth about how to use it. So I think one very important thing is to have like the tooling built in a way where people can really just, click, 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 let me launch my art on the blockchain. So for me, that's like the biggest thing. And I would say another thing is one thing that's very special about Sui is the object-based nature of everything. And I think we'll dive more into this later with what's special with Sui, but I think it allows the blockchain layer gives a lot more creative expression. But we'll dive more into that later on.
Yeah, sure. Bala, outside of the tech, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so outside of the tech, I think a lot of sort of NFT ecosystem sort of building starts with the leadership of like the chain itself. So I think I've been involved with like other NFT ecosystems where the leadership hasn't really cared about NFTs, where it's totally different sort of approach by Sui, which makes it very unique. And I think that is like an important ingredient to make it very successful. So that's probably one of the key factors that will lead to success.
He says that because Adoni rocks a Misfits PFP at the moment. Brando.
Yeah, so I was a barber before this, and I think the one-on-one connections and people feeling heard and listened to, I know it sounds, everybody, we all say we want it, but when you go to a community, you get in there, you buy this NFT, or you're getting this access, and then I think it's the willingness for people to help you, and if you have enough of that, and the culture set from a higher level leadership, it's how authentic is the brand to the leader, and then all the people that are under it. As soon as you lock down the leadership and the way that the community works, it just trickles down. And then as people join in, it almost seems like they're doing the community a disservice if it's already a certain way, and then they try to do something else. So you set the right standards off the bat. And what I've noticed is building my own communities is as soon as you get that standard the right way, it's just people will come in and they'll just become the best version of themselves. You can actually see people shift. And even to the like little nitty gritty of teaching your guys to like reach out to them directly and be like, hey, what's going on? How's everything? How can we help you? And then they'll literally become advocates. And the more advocates you have for your brand, the stronger the, I guess people say utility, but most of these communities, they're super important, and it's the people and being able to listen and feel comfortable and feel vulnerable. Those are the real communities. And you can see it right now with some of the top collections in the space. They are like, their founders their followers will not sell. They will not leave. Even if the price goes up to like 50,000 plus, like you've seen it with like Bored Ape Yachts and some of these other communities. It's a top tier, and then status comes in and fulfillment and all these other different things. But yeah, it's important. I think NFTs are a tool to have people have emotional responses to those things. So people, one last thing I wanted to add is a lot of teams will build, but they won't focus on the art. They think the art is just like, oh yeah, we built something great, we'll just do this. But if you notice it, the teams that have like the art locked, people just have this emotional response, and then you have a window to really build that bond. So I think if anybody's building a project and they're thinking of like, okay, yeah, we'll just put together. No, the art is one of the main pillars of the project, especially if you're going the NFT route. And if you want people to connect with the community, even if you do all your cards right and the art doesn't match up, you're missing a key element, and that's the emotional response. So yeah, I think I'd like that, just to really focus on, if you're building, try to lock that down and pick an artist, something that you resonate, that you look at it and you're like, I can put that as my profile picture, because it's your billboards.
When you say art, do you mean art that resonates with people, or art of a like certain, I guess, like objective quality?
So art is it's definitely subjective, right? But I would say it's the quality of what you're putting out. If you're doing messages, it's like, okay, are you using the same banner across the board for all your socials? Like, or are you paying attention to the details? You have something different for your Discord, for your Twitter. Every time you make an announcement, are you actually spending a little bit of energy to like curate this experience? And I think that the teams that go above and beyond, that's where they really nurture it. And when it comes to community and the art for the PFPs, I don't think it's because art's subjective, of course, but it's like the willingness to the detail. How much do they care? How much does it match the theme? Is there like is it a full package experience, or is there something missing? Because some people that may not have an art background, they'll look at the art and be like, something's wrong, something's off, but they can't say, oh, like the line isn't done in a certain way, or this colorway doesn't match. They don't understand this, but they'll just be like, this doesn't feel right. I don't really like it. So it's like, either like it or I don't like it. So how do you increase the chances of them liking it? You bring in professionals that are good at that stuff. So I know it's subjective, so I don't want to pick and choose which projects are better than others, but the art really matters. Like it's a huge variable that, in my opinion, is probably the most overlooked for a lot of founders.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So we've had tech so far, we've had leadership, we've had community, we've had, I guess, art and branding, I guess, is what you were touching on then when you were talking about consistency across the board. Akasha, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I think, kind of to expand on what you're saying, right? Like, I look at it as kind of three main pillars, right? You have the community, the code, and the content. And the community obviously is very important. I think just as important as the art is making sure you understand from the get-go, what is this community going to be about? What are our like values or our mission statement, right? And making sure that not only do people like the art, but that they vibe with like the message and the purpose of the community. And then the code, obviously, it's NFTs. This is inherently a technical endeavor, and so that's also one of the things I've seen, be deprioritized at very grave cost to the project, right? Where we'll just kind of figure out how to get the code working. This is the small matter of programming, as they say, right? Like, it's always very important to make sure that you're developing and you're testing and what you've got is robust, because as we all know, with immutable data structures, like once it's out there, it's out there. So that's why it's very important and what I consider, one of the three pillars. And then content, much like y'all touched on, right? Like the content, the art, the what it is that you're actually putting out there, not just the art, but what the community is co-creating, I think is also really important, and making sure that stays cohesive, that there's there's trajectory, that there's a cadence. And so that's kind of what I would, kind of use as a way to say, like, here's the three pillars. And, y'all kind of touched on them, right, in your own way. It's like community, code, content, and they're all equally important to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think all of you actually have been involved in different ecosystems. So primarily, I think Brian was with the Icon ecosystem. Bala's done a few, but you worked in Near quite a lot. Brando's been in a few as well. Very involved in Solana especially, and then Akasha with Ethereum, and then also Tezos, right? So I'm interested in your experiences of working with other blockchains, and then also just observing blockchains that maybe you haven't built on. Because, I don't know, from the perspective of me at least, most blockchains don't really have a thriving NFT ecosystem at all. right? You have Ethereum, you could have an argument for, obviously, Solana, Tezos in a very specific area. But beyond that, there aren't really many examples that jump out. So I'd be interested in hearing from your, I guess, what lessons have you learned from these other ecosystems? And then I guess what you think Sui needs to be doing to change that.
Yeah, so I think as an NFT project, it's really important to know the culture of the blockchain before you try to enter it. And those characteristics kind of, I think, break down to two things. So there's culture, and then there's like the size of the blockchain. So if there's not a lot of people who actually use the blockchain, you probably don't want to launch a huge collection on it, because then it just looks bad that like the ownership of the collection is not very decentralized across a lot of people. So then it just makes your project seem small. So instead, you might want to look at a smaller collection, but set a higher price. And so that's like one big thing to be careful of. And the other aspect is that it's very interesting, and I don't exactly know how to put my finger on this yet, but you can feel that different blockchains has different kinds of cultures. So that goes all the way down to like the people in it, the type of memes that you see. So you kind of need to get an understanding and to research that. You need to understand the people who are there before you can actually build something that they would want to buy.
I love your words about memes.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen, these guys had, I'd say quite a small ecosystem, but probably the most active that I've ever seen per capita.
Yeah.
Every time we do a Twitter Spaces, I just go into their Discord like in real time, and the meme channel's just flying, especially with about Shugs, a guy who often comes on our Spaces together.
Yeah, we launched on like a fairly small chain. So with that in mind, our first collection was only 100, and they're still routinely selling for like $4,000 or $5,000. We just had a sale like yesterday. So if we had launched a huge collection, there's not a lot of people who are using it. That's not a good look for us. Yeah,
that makes sense. Bala, lessons learned.
Lessons learned. I mean, I think sort of piggybacking off what I said before, I think like leadership and like and what you were saying, culture, that was like one of the main things that were like lacking in the Near ecosystem. And I think from like, again, going back to leadership, there wasn't that top-down support of like, hey, we really believe in NFTs. Whereas in Sui, the whole blockchain itself is built around NFTs in mind, right? Where it goes to gaming, where it goes to how they view coins and all that kind of stuff. So
when you're talking about leadership, you're talking about from the L1 as well as from the projects themselves.
I'm talking about more so from like the L1s themselves. So like from, for example, like Sui Foundation, from Mr. Lab, like how do they view NFTs and what sort of importance do they place on NFTs? And obviously they do put like a very big importance towards it, which is why it makes me like very excited to actually be building in this ecosystem, because you will get that support back from them. Whereas other ecosystems, I felt like when I have been working in them, that bullishness from them themselves and the emphasis and the importance of it wasn't there. So coming into Sui, that importance is there, and I feel like that will make it be very successful overall.
Great. Brando?
I'm just aiming to, because you guys covered both. In terms of lessons learned, with the NFT world, I think Solana did it really well by nurturing this spirit, but it tapered off towards the end. I don't like talking about chains in specific ways, but I feel like a lot of the teams that were doing some numbers feel like they weren't getting the support and recognition from the L1 itself. Like, so they'll be like, hey, we were in this limelight for so long, the support's just not there. But I feel like, I guess it's difficult for them because in the beginning you have a certain level of like grants and structures and incentives. But what I notice is, yeah, it's one of those Sui's has the ability to watch and see how everyone did things and be like, okay, like let's get these incentive structures to stay an even amount. Let's take care of the people that are committing the most. So, but I do think like as long as there is support, even from the higher ups, just putting their PFP collections as a profile picture, like just literally using it and showing, hey, we support the builders here. I think like that little tiny touch gives the level of confidence for these builders to be like, okay, like look, we have top level support. Let's keep it rolling. And even though it's a subtle difference, I've noticed it makes all the difference when it's applied. So, and it gets the communities going. So I would say maybe it's not a mistake, but I think it's something that all the Sui people, anyone in certain positions, it's not a link. You can treat it like LinkedIn, but if you really want to see the NFT profiles do well, I think supporting the projects that are building the ecosystem would be the play.
Yeah, that makes sense. And lessons learned don't need to be negative lessons as well, right? They can be things that we've seen that actually really works, right? And Solana, I think, was a good example with, especially Anatoly rotating his profile pictures not too frequently to support those communities. I think he did that perfectly, actually. Akasha, anything to add?
Yeah, I think if I'm thinking back to lessons learned in my own journey as an artist, creating art and minting it as NFTs, I've never put together, like a 10K anthropomorphized animal collection, but I typically work in either one of one or low edition art, and I was really excited to be a part of everything, like, early 2021 minting work and seeing this sudden interest in my art. But I didn't realize early enough that I had two different types of people interested in my work for two very different reasons. And that was the speculative investors and the art appreciators. And I think it's very important to understand what your mix is and be able to identify what the motivation of your collectors is, so that you can know like what to expect and know, like what's going to motivate them, what's going to resonate with them. And, no judgment, right? Like, a lot of people love to play these money games and treat NFT collections like a casino. And that's great. It's exciting and fun. But for me as an artist, I think I realized a little too late that I had a number of people that were, basically there to flip my work. And that really wasn't what I wanted to optimize for. And so I realized that a little late in 2021, and had to really pump the brakes and kind of reanalyze, how I wanted to engage with my collector base. So that's like, I think the number one lesson I learned.
Okay, that's interesting. Knowing your audience, I guess, and then play into those that you want to prioritize.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, very interesting. So, Brian, you touched a little bit earlier on to the tech, right, with Sui.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in talking a little bit more about what Sui brings to the table.
Yeah.
So, we've had some great talks already. Lots of it's very developer focused, right? Around talking about concepts like programmable transactions or dynamic field objects and dynamic fields. But I'd be very interested in hearing, I guess, tangibly from you, where you see the real opportunities in terms of appealing to end users through some of these technologies.
Yeah. For me, it boils down to the object-based nature of Sui and the security of Sui. So I can break that down a bit more. So if you think about it, like everything in this world is an object. If you think of a car, there's the frame, and then within it, the steering wheel is an object, the wheel is an object, even the tire on the wheel is an object. And the relationships between them kind of define what the actual car is. So to have a framework on Sui that allows for you to model that on the blockchain is great for both the developer, because it's a more tangible experience when you can say, so if we're building a ticketing platform right now. So if you say that, okay, a ticket is an object, the seat assigned with that ticket can also be an object. And you can just put these building blocks, like you can compose them, right? And so the developer experience is great. And I love the example that I think it was Cheyenne gave in his talk, where on Sui, if you're trying to give an object from one person to another, it's kind of like you take $1 from your pocket and give it to someone else, versus, the bank puts $1 from your account to someone else's account. So that's very easy to explain to the end user, because everyone is familiar with, I take something out of my pocket, I give it to your pocket. So, and on the security front, again, like, I'm going to go back to this world that we live in. Like, we live in a world that's basically governed by safety rules. So, like, this building has some kind of code that defines, like, how safe it needs to be. And, we all wear seatbelts, and there's all kinds of laws, right? And we often see that people justify the craziness in crypto as it's the Wild West. That's not a good justification, because people want to use safe things. It's a good justification for builders because we can truly, build new things. It is the Wild West, but for the user, you can't just say like, oh, you lost your keys. It's the Wild West. I'm sorry. Or the contract got exploited. I'm sorry.
Been there before.
Like, you're right. Like that happens, but like I want to be building in an ecosystem where like a certain degree of safety is baked into the core. And that's what we're able to get with Move. So like the creative expression through objects, I think will help projects in Sui expand beyond art. So, I'm excited to see what teams build. We're working on ticketing, like everything could be an NFT to a certain degree, like subscriptions, people's wills, any kind of contract. So I'm excited to see like more use cases expand in Sui, and excited to see how people use the object-based language there.
Nice. Talking about the object-based language and like different use cases for NFTs, one that gets talked about quite often at the moment is dynamic NFTs and how that could be used in, I guess, aesthetics and for collections, maybe that people feel some sort of affinity to. So, Bala, I know you're excited about this area. I don't know how much alpha you want to drop, but do you want to talk a little bit about the plans of Misfits?
Yeah. So dynamic NFTs, everyone sort of knows that sort of like what it is and like on a basic sort of level. So a lot of people right now, they're sort of Sui ecosystem are doing swappable traits, which is very basic sort of use of dynamic NFTs where you're able to move like what hoodie you're wearing. You might want to put a t-shirt on your character and make it more like look like you as you do in real life. Where it gets kind of interesting is for dynamic NFTs being able to attach it to oracles. So we're actually going to be looking at how we can tie like weather conditions to where you live to the NFT and how that can change. So for example, if your location is Sydney and the weather in that city is above 25 degrees Celsius, you'll be wearing a summer outfit and your NFT will look like that in your wallet. And then if it's below 25 degrees, you might be wearing a winter outfit. Now, we're just trying to work out what are the use cases for this. Like, it would be super cool to see that if Twitter actually integrates like Sui NFTs into it, that you'll be able to look at someone's NFT profile. You'll be like, oh, this guy's feeling cold, this guy's feeling warm, because that's what the temperature is like. And then I think I was mentioning it to someone else a bit earlier as well today. It'd be super cool if you're able to do that with timing as well, where if it's daytime, your PFP is brighter sort of background. And if it's nighttime, then it'll be a darker background to signify that, hey, I might not be available because it's 12 o'clock at night in my time zone. So I think that's where it kind of gets super interesting. And that's why I'm sort of more interested to explore for dynamic NFTs beyond just simple trait swaps, which a lot of people are looking at.
Can't wait to get my Misfits with its umbrella. So, Brando, Akasha, we've got 1 minute 40 left. I don't know if either of you two wanted to talk on this topic specifically, but I'd be interested in hearing if you do.
I'll just jump in real quick. I think branding, the ability for a brand to have like let's say a branded sweater for X amount of time, then you can add in POAPs into it where it's like proof of attendance. If someone's at that event, they can see that they're wearing the sweater. So I do think like some brands, eventually they're going to be the same way that people spend lots of money to be the real estate on your phone, like be the first app on your home screen. I think the real estate on your body and your PFP is going to actually matter just as much. So it'll be very interesting to see how brands compete to be like, we want to be the helmet for that character. We want to be the shirt for that character, the shirt that everyone knows and recognizes. So it's the brand's job, not you. So that would be really cool to see as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think just to add, real quick, I think the concept of dynamic NFTs is something that will unlock so much in comparison to the way I see people engaging with kind of sort of the closest you can get on a chain like Ethereum. There's a lot of anxiety around the process because essentially all you can do is burn to mint something new. And that's so irrevocable that there's such a high sense of anxiety associated with that process for a lot of folks. And I think, starting from, the idea of a composable dynamic NFT being a first-class concept really just lowers the barrier of entry for that process and makes it feel psychologically a lot safer to engage with that mechanism. So I'm really excited to see how that changes the way people use the NFTs on Sui.
That was amazing. You literally finished it 000 on the dot. Thanks everybody for coming. I agree with what you were just saying, by the way. Like, just to conclude, with the dynamic NFTs, you can have them on other blockchains, right? You can see them on Ethereum, you can see them on Solana. Every time somebody makes one, there's a huge deal about it. Like, we as Clutchy are working with at least 30 projects that are going to be launching dynamic NFTs, like from the early stages of mainnet. So, like, the lower barrier of entry is very, very apparent. And that's one of the things we got very excited about when we decided to come and build. So thanks to the amazing panelists. Thanks everybody for listening. And I'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.